I can't believe the day's finally come where I'm going to be talking about this. Oh, and this is probably the last video I'm going to make like this, because I know that my goal for the year was just to make YouTube videos every week, but I also am not a fan of just doing things for the sake of doing them. I want to learn and make sure I'm doing this right, and what I feel that I've learned is doing such broad videos isn't that helpful, and I should really be starting on more specific topics. And what I'm doing with the rest of my week is learning about music production and learning video effects and things like that, and I can't help but think that it's probably smarter for me to try to appeal to more specific audiences. But this is a video for me. It's the last one I'm gonna do for me. And so, hey friends, welcome to the YouTube channel. Today I'm gonna be telling you about my biggest mistake, how it led to somebody actually hating me, and what I learned from the whole process. I'm gonna try to do this in 8 chapters. So here we go with chapter 1. How we met. The main guy in the story here is a guy named Jeff, and I went back and forth on whether or not I should actually say his name, but I don't think that this is really a video that's negative towards him in any way, so I'm just gonna say his name is Jeff. The way that we met is I had left home for the first time, born and raised in Texas, and I went to Colorado. I'm gonna really try to not give you more details than you want. I went to Colorado Springs, hadn't played guitar for 2 or 3 months, and I mapped guitar places, and I found a guitar shop in a little town called Salida. So I drove the 2 hours to go down, walked into the guitar shop. The craziest thing I've maybe ever done, this guy's like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you," you know, and he's all nice, and he's shaking my hand, and I'm like, "It's so cool that you build guitars." Like, there were wood shavings along the floor and all these woodworking tools, and he explained to me what it meant to be a luthier, to be somebody that builds violins, builds guitars, and that he's been doing it for years and years. And he said he was different than all the other guitar makers. And I said, "What do you mean you're different?" He said, "Well, look at this guitar neck that I have." You know, he had this adjustable neck that you turn this thing and the neck changes the action on the guitar. And he said, "You won't find that anywhere else." And I'm trying to patent that and work through all this stuff. And I just thought, this is cool. Here's a guy that works with wood for a living and has this gritty old wood guitar shop that's actually awesome, and he set up a really good atmosphere with it. But he's also got this inventor knack. And there's something about that right off the bat I thought I would enjoy being here. And so I told him, "I'm a videographer. What are the odds that I filmed a course with you where you teach people how to build guitars?" He said to me, "I've always wanted to do a course like that." And then I just responded with the first thing that came to my mind, "I've always wanted to build my own guitar." And it's probably the biggest example in my life of me just selling myself blindly. Like, not really knowing how we would pull it off or what we would do, but I just jumped in head first. That's how I met Jeff. We went from 0 to 60 really fast, and within 10 minutes of meeting each other had shook hands with this old-fashioned agreement based on trust, where I was going to film him a course that he could sell online on how he does what he does with his innovative tricks and all of that, because that was really the exciting stuff, you know, the stuff that made him different. And he was going to let me build my own guitar. Now, chapter 2, how close we got. One little note before I get into this. My bandmate Tanner, we have a band called Spondiferous. He came up to Colorado because I was just egging him on that he also needed to leave home and that it'd be a great experience for both of us. And he came and got into this deal because I just kind of weaseled that into action. I was like, "Oh yeah, Jeff, this guy, he's also great. He's also a videographer." Tanner was just learning. He had like no experience whatsoever, but he did just buy his own camera. So again, I'm just completely selling the whole situation with this trust that, like, this is how you live large, you know, you go and you do these crazy things and see what's gonna happen, because, like, really, what's the worst that could happen? So how close we got. I got closer to Jeff than Tanner did because I was there first for like 2 months before Tanner even came up. And it started out in, again, a small town. We'd get pizza at the local pizza shop. We'd get drinks at the local tap house. And after Tanner came up, we even went down to the arcade and had Jeff try VR for the first time. And all of this was just fun and exciting. In fact, I had my 21st birthday in Salida. I feel very sure you're not supposed to do this with your mouth. It's a great thing I have this inflatable blue exercise ball, because with it came this thing. Wow, what a weird design. I don't do anything and it just doesn't leak air. So where was I? I had my 21st birthday in Salida, and my mom told me 3 years later that she had bought me these 21 balloons, thinking that I would either come back home or that they were going to go up there to Colorado, and none of that ended up happening. So about 2 weeks ago when I turned 24, she pulled these out and was like, surprise, and just handed them to me like, you know, maybe I'd enjoy the idea of just having these around my house. And she knows me so well, because I am gonna enjoy having these around my house. So Jeff and Tanner made it to where I wasn't alone in Salida on my birthday. And I went to the local tap house for my 21st birthday because it's just not the place that I usually go. And he bought us our first flight of drinks and had us taste all these different kinds of beer and explained to us the ones that he likes most and the ones that, in his words, are factually worse. And we had a good time. I mean, it got to a point where everything we did with Jeff was a good time. But then it went one layer deeper. When we needed to find places to park our cars to sleep, he drove us around trying to find places that were safe and wouldn't get us in trouble with anyone locally. He let us sleep in his garage with a heater when it got too cold. He let us sleep in his guitar shop and then gave us the keys to his guitar shop so we could just come and go as we please, and use his microwave in there and his mini fridge. And I can only imagine from his perspective walking into your own shop every day, not just for the first week or 2 weeks, but seeing these kids there that just kind of came into your life and now they're like always around. And this gets into chapter 3, when it turned. You know, the first handful of episodes that we filmed for this online course came at a crawl. That alone took months because none of us were prioritizing the work, the filming. We were all having a good time. In our minds, you know, the course, whenever we started getting serious about it, it might only take 30 days to do. And because we're okay with being here for like over a year, we have ample time to kind of actually just have a good time. Plus, Tanner was starting his wedding videography business and building that up, and I was doing my real estate videos. And we were also watching TV shows, stealing McDonald's Wi-Fi. So it's just like we were living our own life in Salida. The course wasn't the first priority for us or for Jeff, because Jeff had his guitars to build and had clients asking for these guitars. So there were actually weeks at a time where he couldn't stop everything and film with us because he had a guitar that needed to be done in the next 8 days or whatever. And I would say we all kind of clicked into the fact that we were technically behind. And if we really believed that the course could be done in like 30 days, why are we now 5 months in? It's like we had forgotten that we were all just kind of chilling in this cool town, and we just collectively decided to think of it that like this course has taken 5 months, even though that wasn't true. We hadn't been working on it for 5 months. The total working time would have been a lot less than that. But this shift in perspective was real and acted as like a multiplier on all of our other frustrations that we had. And I would also say this thing that I feel is true like throughout my life. Big frustrations, particularly between people, often aren't just one big thing that happened that makes you so frustrated. It's a series of little things that build up over time. And so in terms of Jeff getting frustrated with Tanner and I, there were a series of little things that built up for him. No matter the reason why they were originally allowed to happen, like us sleeping in his garage, us sleeping in the alleyway behind his house, us sleeping in his guitar shop, us getting the keys to his guitar shop, us making his guitar shop in his words, smell like ramen and farts. Which of course he's talking about the canned soup that we would make, which I just can't stand today. Totally burned myself out. And the beans that Tanner liked to make. And he has a point with all of that. I mean, when you walk into the guitar shop, like that first time that I did, there's an atmosphere and a wooden aroma. He burned certain kinds of candles to give all that. His attention to those details were already real and proven, and so for us to make it smell like ramens and farts, I'm sure that would be really frustrating. Now for chapter 4, how we responded. Things were amping up. We were all getting a bit more tense. There were good days, of course. You walk into the shop, everyone's happy. But those days were typically the days that no one brought up filming. And when no one brings up filming, you just get right back into that. Let's just enjoy all being friends, and you're doing what you're doing and we're doing what we're doing. Weddings, real estate jobs, building guitars. And we all just like to hang out together here in the shop. I felt I had to be the guy that no one likes, and I started pushing Jeff uncomfortably for both of us. Like, we've already restarted the course once. That was frustrating. We've talked a little bit about restarting again. I don't think I'm willing to do that. We need to be filming every day instead of 3 days a week. We can't do that. Okay, we need to be filming every other day. Is there really no way that we can close down the shop? Like, these are all things that I'm saying to a point where after just 2 or 3 weeks, he started telling me or calling me a slave driver. And I felt like I did not know any better way to just make this happen, thinking if we made this happen, it'd be better for all of us. It'd be over. We still have 5 or 6 months until we can say that we've been here a full year. So like we've still got time, but I'd rather be proactive as opposed to waiting around until it's too late, because those first 5 months went by surprisingly fast, and I just couldn't help but see that the next 5 months would. So the first thing we decided to do to try to make our relationship with Jeff better is we stopped using up his sleeping spaces. Tanner and I went to this local building called a church. It's only like 3 blocks from Jeff's place. Tanner and I started to grow really close to the people that owned that. To this day, we just love them to tears. Well, we started staying there because most days of the week they didn't have anything going on. They only had events like 2 or 3 days a week. And they had Wi-Fi, and they had a fridge, and they had a microwave, which just blows my mind. They also were like, go ahead and use any of the space that you want. And this time we knew better. We didn't take them up on that. We used a small portion of their fridge. This was a larger fridge, but we put even less stuff in this full-size fridge than we did in Jeff's mini fridge. Because we just felt like that's how we messed up. Every time somebody extended their arm to help us, like they would say the terms like, this is a mini fridge, you can totally use it. And then we totally used it. Well, that becomes a problem, especially over time. I really don't want to come across the wrong way here. Like, Jeff is a great guy. He offered us help in a lot of ways and is the sole reason we were even able to survive in Salida for the first 5 months we were there. And we took him up on everything. We took him up on all of it and then kept taking him up on it for like half a year. Because we didn't need all of the mini fridge that we used. We didn't need to cook our ramen and beans in his guitar shop. We could have cooked them at a gas station. We didn't need to do all these things that absolutely could have helped us from preventing chapter 5, the arguments. Oh Lord, I've never been yelled at with cuss words until Jeff. That's the sort of arguments that we had. They were the most heated thing. And I've gone back and forth thinking about it, trying to think like, how could I have done this better? Because first there's preventing the frustrations from rising in the first place, but then there's preventing an argument from getting this heated. I've thought like maybe an argument is supposed to be had. Just flesh out all your thoughts and then you can start to heal. But really what I learned is that arguments are a place where things are said that you can't unsay. And that's something you have to be incredibly careful of. Because the way you feel in this moment isn't that important in the grand scheme of y'all's relationship. And if I have any hopes of being a friend with Jeff for the next 5-10 years and visiting him in Slide every once in a while, I wouldn't give him negative things that he's always going to remember. One thing I told him that I'm sure has stuck with him is, you don't deserve this guitar course. I said, you don't work hard enough and don't focus on it, and you just want to leisurely enjoy your days and drink your soda and eat your PB&Js and not get any of the stuff done that needs to get done. And he told me I was a spoiled brat. Now, what I'm sharing is obviously not the full argument. We had 3 arguments. Each one was roughly an hour, over the course of like a couple months. Because you try to hold it together, and then 3 weeks go by, and then there's another argument. You try to hold it together, another couple weeks go by, and there's another argument. Well, that happened 3 times, and at the end of that, I was ready to leave Salida. I was calling my parents, telling them like, I want to finish this course at all costs. I want to do what I came here and said I was going to do. That's the way y'all raised me. Like, this is a great experience in life for me to tackle the hardest thing I've ever been through and actually follow it through, which I didn't even end up doing very well. In terms of building my guitar, I kind of rushed that process. So did Tanner, and now our guitars don't play well at all. In terms of Jeff's videos, that was kind of rushed too. Towards the end, when we were like, we can't restart this course again, we need to just get this done, we're realizing this is way more work than we thought it was going to be. Even if we were working on it every day, it would take more than 30 days to do this course with Jeff. So all of us were wrong from the beginning. And you know, that's another thing that came up in the arguments was he would say, where's my videos? We would say, we're going to edit them in a batch. We're filming in a batch, we're going to edit in a batch, and then we're going to deliver them all to you. This is like the worst mistake I've ever made as a videographer. I hadn't learned yet that there's something called dailies. Dailies in video production is at the end of every day of filming, you look back at your footage and you pull out some shots. You stay organized all the time so that everything is top of mind, including any issues that you see. And the next day, you might actually film to fix issues from the previous day. Well, when we hit our footage, we had months worth of footage that we now had to just start from the beginning and go through. And any issue, man, I wish Tanner and I were more experienced when we had done this because it would have been a lot different. Any issue that we saw, we couldn't fix. We were like, we really can't afford to restart this course again. But on a number of our shots, the colors were all wrong. The resolution was 1080p, even though we could have shot in 4K. Our eyes weren't trained yet, and we were like, you can't really tell a difference between 1080p and 4K. Man, I'd love to kick younger me in the shin. You can tell a difference between 1080p and 4K. Very much so. I can't believe I ever thought that was true. And it's just the footage is overall bad. And that right there is when I realized I was maybe making the worst mistake of my life. I had agreed to do something for a guy selling myself as a videographer. I had done like 5 or 6 weddings. Which really had just been involved in 5 or 6 weddings. I didn't even film most of them. I was editing them for another company. And I'm looking at this footage, and Tanner and I are sitting at a church and we're trying to edit it, and we're looking at each other like, this is bad. And that makes you feel terrible. It seemed just good enough to deliver and be passable and him to put online and actually get some people to buy it because his competitors doing these types of courses, as far as we could see, all the stuff Jeff had showed us, it wasn't like that much better. Nobody had nailed that market of guitar building online. But when I'm just honest about it, it wasn't what we promised him. We promised him us getting creative and knowing what we're doing with lighting and color, and we delivered stuff that showed where we were at experience-wise. So we started delivering that stuff. We listened to Jeff and we said, okay, we'll start delivering you at least a couple videos every week, which turned into like, we're gonna try to deliver you a video every day. We're gonna show you how focused we are on this by showing you that we're editing and working on it every day, and maybe we can film every day too. And the more we delivered to him, the more he started to give us revisions that he required. And that's when we were like, we've screwed ourselves. And in Jeff's mind, we've screwed Jeff because of all this time that it took to get to where we're at. And this is what we have to show for it. I just feel horrible about it. I felt horrible about it. And when we were having our arguments, it was mostly him unleashing his fury, I felt, on me, and I, for the most part, just kind of took it because, I would try to say things that would be holding us all together because I didn't want the whole thing to crumble. That comment about like how you don't deserve this course, yeah, that's like when it got bad for me, and I was like, I'm gonna unleash some of my anger. You don't deserve this course. That might have been like the second or third argument. I know the first argument we had was definitely like, I felt like I was just taking heat. And I really felt like I deserved it, and I didn't know what to do about it in that moment. It's like I've never felt more trapped. And that takes me to the next chapter, leaving. Tanner and I at this point have been with Jeff for about 11 months, editing and revising and delivering and going back and forth about how the course isn't what it should be, and refilming certain episodes, and then starting to work on Tanner and I's guitars. And we can tell that we're coming to a close, and so we decided to tell Jeff, in a couple months, it's gonna be February. It's gonna be my birthday again. I'll be 22. My parents are coming up. We're gonna do a big live show at a church, and we would like a number of things. We would like to be able to play our guitars there. So if we could focus on our guitars and get them built by then, that'd be great. That ended up happening, despite them not being like perfectly playable. We went up on stage and played guitars that had rough necks that weren't fully done being sanded and didn't have all the coatings of whatever it needed. My guitar is in this room to my right, still unfinished. We told them we'd like to have a good time with our parents while they're here, to be able to have most of this production stuff with you mostly done, so that when they go back to Texas, we can go back with them. And this was another visual thing we could see kind of flip in Jeff, where he was like, y'all are leaving. Like it was real. Like he knew that we were going to leave eventually. But the idea of us putting a deadline on this, just 8 weeks away, I think to him felt, I don't know, I don't want to put words to it. It felt wrong, obviously. Things only got more tense and like everything became business and not fun. And there was a general dislike towards each other. And this led to the second most surreal moment of my life when one morning I find that I'm meeting Jeff at the front of his guitar shop. He has our guitars in 2 guitar cases. He hands them to me and I say something like, "Thank you." And he essentially responds with, "Good luck making it as a musician." And then I just turned around and walked away. He didn't come to our live show, and there were loads of people there. It was easily the best live show we ever did. A number of people were crying. Our mentors were there. Our parents were there. And all these friends we made in town were there. And yeah, I didn't see Jeff again for a long time. So, then there's chapter 7, ghosted. First time in my life I've ever been ghosted by anybody was a 60-year-old man. You'd think that I would have been ghosted by someone younger or my age, but I guess the truth is at this point in my life, I have hung around more older people than I have younger people. So Jeff ghosted me. The Thanksgiving after leaving his place, I sent him a long email telling him that I was sorry, telling him that I wanted us to remember all the good times, the pizza and the VR and the hanging out, and that I was never ungrateful. Or rather, I was sorry if I had seemed ungrateful with all the places he let us stay, because that is something I'll always remember, that he let that whole season of our lives happen and we were all hanging out and having a good time, and I hate that that went bad. And what I would love is to get the chance to be able to visit him and come to the guitar shop and just be friends again and have it be good like the good old days. And I just let him know, like, it's Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for you, and I'm supremely sorry. None of that is like the way that I worded it, but that's just the general idea. He didn't respond, so the Thanksgiving after that one, I sent him another email, and I actually had gone to Salida and called him and left him a voicemail saying I'm in town, and texted him and walked by his shop, and I saw him inside facing the other direction working on a lamp. That was actually around the time that I called him, because I only called him once. And here's a few things I know about Jeff. I know that he always has his phone on him. I know that it's not on silent. I know that he knows that I called and that he's ignoring it. So what I chose to do is to not bother him. I didn't knock on the window to have him turn around and see me, because I think that would have just been a little bit selfish. Instead, I'm going to let him cope with everything that happened however he best knows how. Who knows, I might send him another message next Thanksgiving because I have problems. But overall, I just want him to be doing well, I never meant anything bad for him. I stepped in and I screwed up, and the whole thing was a severe problem, and I take ownership of that. And if what he feels best doing is acting like I never existed and just kind of getting back to his life, enjoying the beautiful town that he lives in and the amazing people that he's surrounded by in that town, I'm going to say I'm cool with that. But it hurts, it stings. It really sticks with you. So I want to talk about what I learned, because I think I've finally reached a point where I'm getting past this a little bit. One thing that I would say I've learned is a little bit of an awareness for trauma. I had never understood trauma. And after having those arguments with Jeff where cuss words were being yelled at me, and I actually had never experienced that before, and it shook me. I guess I learned that trauma of different levels of trauma, I guess. Mine was a more minor one, I'm sure. It can come in different ways, often when you're not expecting it. I did not think that an argument would make me feel anxiety for the first time in my life. But for about an entire year after I got back from Salida, I was experiencing anxiety for the first time in my life whenever I would think about Jeff. I don't know how to fully put it into words. Maybe it's kind of like all of my flaws in everything that happened rushed over me, not in thought, but just in feeling. This supreme need to fix something that you have no power or ability to fix. It's completely out of my power, because it's like what's been done has already been done, right? So that was a big thing that I learned, and learning how to deal with trauma. I got to test a theory I've had since I was a kid that other people told me, not my own theory, is that you have to purpose to work through it. In your own time, of course, and all that, but you need to purpose to work through it because it doesn't just work through itself. I got to spend time really thinking through that and talking with people about what happened. And, I found that a lot of people ended up to comfort me saying things like, it wasn't your fault, or even turning it on Jeff at some point in our conversations. And what I found is that I wanted to maintain my ability to have complete ownership of everything that happened while also letting go of my anxiety. And that was like an extra hurdle that I had to figure out how to navigate. But in the end, I do think it was the healthiest way to do it. It's like you carry this stuff with you forever regardless, and hopefully you learn from it and get the chance to do some things much better next time. But it is possible to accept what you did wrong and want to be better in the future, but also let go. To not beat yourself up over it because you don't have the ability to change it. So you kind of turn that on its head. That's kind of the source of the anxiety, I think, for me, is like this aspect of it being out of my control, all these things. But I flip that and I go, no, because it's out of my control, I'm gonna breathe and like let this go. And in a number of ways, move on. The ways in which I won't move on are the ways in which I'm going to be trying to remember to do better in the future. So it's just me trying to find a healthy path forward. And that just seems like the healthiest way to have handled it overall. Another thing I learned is that it's true. You should try to leave places and people and things better than you found them. Don't just take, but instead at least try to keep your mind on the idea of taking care of those that take care of you. We were just immature kids, but man, it would have gone a long way simply sweeping his shop since he was letting us sleep in his shop. Or cleaning up in some other sort of way, more often at least. I did it a few times, but I guess when you're consistently taken care of by somebody, it's nice or really stand up of you to like, with some sort of consistency, give back if you're aware of it and you can. I really hate that I wasn't aware of it at the time, but next time I will be. Another thing I learned is fake it till you make it can hurt people, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because it was exciting for me and it was exciting for Jeff. It was exciting for Tanner. Like all of us were doing something we didn't fully have figured out. And it pushed Jeff all of a sudden to think through, how do you do a course? He had notes and research he had done, but now he's like doubling down on that because it's a reality. It's happening. It would have never happened at all probably if it wasn't for two random kids coming out of nowhere and just going, we're going to film you a course. It was just a cool thing for all of us until it wasn't. And so fake it till you make it can hurt people. It's just in the process, try to be proactively taking care of those that take care of you, leaving things better than you found it, and just generally being really thoughtful of everybody that you come into contact with. And the last thing that's more positive and good, there are people out there willing to meet you in your journey, take care of you, give you a place to sleep, let you use their microwave and their fridge. Not just one in a small town, but two, probably 3 or 4 others. All these people that own these small businesses are people. And if you come into town saying, I'm on this journey, I have these goals, I'm going to try to learn this thing or accomplish that, they're remarkable in how helpful they are with this person that they just met. The world is full of these helpers. There is such a thing as abusing their generosity, and that could happen on accident. But as soon as you hear these words and you're aware of the fact that these things happen, you can try harder to make sure they don't happen. Go live those adventures, go meet those people, go be helped, help them in any way that you can, and live a big life. 2019 was the biggest year ever for me. It had more firsts than any other year. I learned about business, I learned about friendships and relationships. I learned about a lot, and it wasn't perfect because life is never perfect, but it was exactly what it was supposed to be. I learned a lot, Tanner learned a lot, Jeff learned a lot. Sometimes shit happens, but it doesn't mean any of us should stop and let life go by. No, I think I'm gonna go do something like that again at some point in the future, meeting people in some other town, maybe overseas, and seeing what all can come of it. I'm just gonna take this knowledge and try to be better the next time around. So, thank you everybody for watching this video. I'm happy I finally did this one, but next week I'm going to be trying to get a little more on track with something that anybody would care or be interested in as far as a YouTube channel growing a following goes. So I hope you all have a good week. I hope that anyone out there is able to learn from the many mistakes that I made in 2019. And if you see Jeff Bamberg at Rocky Mountain Guitar Co., buy one of his things, shake his hand, be nice. Don't make it weird. Tell him that you saw a video about him and that you love him and you think he's a really great guy for letting these two kids stay in a shop and stay in all these places. And Jeff, if you're watching this, I hope you know that you gave me a great 21st birthday, a great 21st year of my life. I am really thankful for you, and I'm sorry that it had to end up the way that it did. All right, I will see you all next week.